Hello dear friends, you are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and this is the daily frontline update. The battles continue, and together we keep analyzing the situation. And so, my friends, today we have some very good news from the front. There has been a lot of movement, and not just small gains, major, significant advances. Just to give you a sense of scale, I'll name the figure right away. In the past 24 hours, the Russian army has taken control of nearly 60 square kilometers. This is the best result in the entire month of October. Let's start today's report with the situation at the Dobropilya salient. Remember, yesterday I told you that the Russian Marines had completely retaken Vladimirovka? Well, take a look. Footage from objective control drones confirms that the village is now fully under Russian control. Moreover, the success turned out to be even greater than I was told or expected, because not only were the Ukrainian forces pushed out of Vladimirovka itself, but the entire pocket to the south of it was also cleared. The depth of the advance there reached 4 kilometers and 700 meters. Thus, all the Ukrainian gains made in September in this area, near Vladimirovka, have been completely nullified. To clarify, in September, Ukrainian forces had pushed forward from Vladimirovka towards Koptev, gaining several positions, but now the Russian army has fully regained them. In the end, all Ukrainian successes came to nothing. The area of Russian advancement on this section reached 13.5 square kilometers. As for further prospects, the obvious next step is to press on Shakov from the south. Shakov is a tough nut to crack, but an extremely important one. If the entire defense line stretching through Shakov, Sofivka and Toretsk can be broken before the end of the month, then by the end of the year, Russian troops could be standing on the outskirts of Druzhkivka. Now what else can be said about this entire sector? Some incredible footage has come in from the area south of the town of Rodinsky. There, 25 destroyed vehicles can be seen. Imagine that, 25. Among them are armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, various types of armored cars, American, Turkish and Ukrainian, all burned out. And what was it? It was an attempt by the Ukrainian army to bring reinforcements to Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad to hold those cities and slow the Russian advance. A completely senseless move, considering how close Russian positions already are. The Russian army stands right on the outskirts, pressing on Rodinsky. Even during the Ukrainian counter-offensive of 2023, we did not see that much destroyed equipment in one frame. As for Rodinsky itself, the fighting there is very tough, but Russian forces are steadily tightening the ring around the city from all sides. Inside the city, too, the army is making gradual progress. I believe that by December, the city could be completely taken. Now, let's move on to the responsibility zone of the Vostok, the East Group. We'll start with Zaporizhzhia. Here, the battles are raging for the last Ukrainian defense line covering Huliaipol from the north. According to information I've received from the guys on the ground, the Russian army is successfully breaking through that defense. Take a look. They've advanced along a front more than 8 kilometers wide, and the depth of the advance is also impressive. For instance, in one area the troops moved forward by 4.5 kilometers, reaching the Yancha River. In the process, they also approached the outskirts of Okhotnicha village. There hasn't been a full assault yet, but Russian forces have occupied several farm buildings south of the settlement. However, the most important battle here is for Poltavka. Despite being a large and well-fortified village, Ukrainian defenses are collapsing. The entire eastern part, including the agricultural complexes, is under Russian control. Locals report that not only the eastern part before the river, as most maps show, but also the central part of Poltavka, on the opposite bank, is now under Russian control. This area isn't yet shaded on maps, but I'm sharing what I was told. According to field reports, final clearing operations are now underway. Essentially, Ukrainian resistance there has been broken, and Poltavka will likely fall completely within the coming days. And what happens after Poltavka falls is obvious. The advance will move toward Huliaipol, probably along the Novospanivka-Yablokove line, with further clearing operations south of it. Anyway, the total area brought under control in the Zaporizhzhia region amounts to 17.7 square kilometers. Now to the Dnipropetrovsk region. Interestingly, there were some local Ukrainian advances here as well, but compared to the Russian progress, they're nothing more than a mosquito bite. Ukrainian forces pushed forward by about 1 kilometer north of Verbove. Meanwhile, Russian troops advanced across a front 7.5 kilometers wide, with a depth of more than 5 kilometers from their previous positions, an incredible result. If you watched yesterday's episode, I told you about the breakthrough toward Alexeyevka. At first, Russian units secured the southern part of the village. Now, as you can see on the map, most of Alexeyevka is under Russian control, with fighting continuing in the northern part. According to reports, Ukrainian troops are putting up fierce resistance. They are counterattacking, trying to slow the advance, but so far, unsuccessfully. Given the dynamics of the fighting, Alexeyevka will likely be fully under Russian control in the coming days. Southeast of the village, a large area has already been cleared. The area of Russian advancement in the Dnipropetrovsk region is 20.5 square kilometers, while the Ukrainian gain is about 1 square kilometer. At this rate, the territory controlled by the Russian army in the Dnipropetrovsk region will soon exceed that in the Sumy region, and the number of villages under Russian control there is already greater. Moving on. There were also advances over the past 24 hours in the Kherka-Kostiantynivka sector. Here, Russian troops moved forward by 2 kilometers and 300 meters between Pleshchevka and Oleksandro-Shultine. Yesterday, Ukrainian channels reported that Russian reconnaissance groups had been spotted inside Kostiantynivka itself. I couldn't find any footage or visual confirmation, but it's possible since Russian positions are already very close to the city. Heavy fighting also continues around Yampil, the urban-type settlement between Zhiversk and Lyman. Russian troops advanced by 800 meters within the residential zone, capturing 1st of May Lane. And the settlement administration building. There's still a long way to go, but the progress is clear. At this moment, Russian forces control just over 40% of Yampil. As I've said before, control over the surrounding forests will be the key factor here, and that remains a challenge. There was also success in the Kharkiv region. Troops of the Zapad West Group managed to regain previously lost positions in Zarizhov. Not the entire village yet, but most of it is back under Russian control. Ukrainian forces had recaptured it earlier this summer. But as usual, this pattern repeats itself. Ukrainian troops briefly retake something, celebrate it loudly, and then lose it again. They took Vladimirovka, and there was so much excitement. I remember those statements. Now we'll encircle them. Now we'll drive the Russians from the Dobropilya salient. And what's the result? The Russian army has reclaimed all the lost ground. The same story in Zarizhova, briefly taken by the Ukrainians, now mostly retaken by Russian troops. Russian forces are already entering Kostiantynivka. Reconnaissance groups have been spotted in the city, a key Ukrainian defense hub in Donbass. According to Kiev sources, Russian troops have advanced from the southeast, from Oleksandro-Shultine, and are pushing into the city. Fighting continues near Ivanopilya. Kiev is throwing everything it has there to prevent the Russians from securing the area, as this is the last settlement on the approach to Kostiantynivka. Simultaneously, fighting continues along the forest belts on the opposite side of the Kleban-Beek Reservoir. Summing up the day, in the past 24 hours, the Russian army has taken control of the 59.3 square kilometers of territory. As I said at the beginning, almost 60 square kilometers in one day. Autumn has set in, the foliage is thinning. Yet, as you can see, the Russian army is not slowing its pace. That's all for the frontline updates. Now let's take a look at what's happening on the political stage. A massive strike on Ukraine's energy infrastructure took place. The main targets were Kiev, Zaporizhzhia, and Dnipropetrovsk. Kiev, the entire left bank is without electricity, and there are outages on the right bank as well. Water supply problems are reported. Zaporizhzhia, multiple strikes on infrastructure, 7 drone attacks, FAB bombs, and missiles. Gas facilities were damaged, and residents are being urged to limit gas usage. The passage over the Dnipro-Ches Dam is closed. Dnipropetrovsk, direct hits caused large fires and power outages. Sumy region, rolling blackouts introduced, 10 disconnection cycles are active. Explosions were also reported in the Poltava and Kharkiv regions. The following major facilities came under attack: the Zaporizhzhia hydroelectric station, Pridniprovsk thermal power plant, Kiev CHPP-5 and CHPP-6, Kremenchuk hydroelectric station in the Cherkasy region, and the Kaniv hydroelectric station. Railway infrastructure was also hit in the Sumy, Chernihiv, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. Reasons for the massive strike. The main reason is Zelensky's newly announced Infrastructure War 3.0. Secondary reasons include his threats to attack Russian ports and the country's energy logistics, as well as his public statements about leaving Moscow in darkness. Zelensky also recently said that he had spoken with the SBU and that they were preparing a series of sabotage operations, supposedly about to happen. President Vladimir Putin made a statement. "We will soon present new weapons. The fate of Russia has always been in the hands of its people. Today, our military stands at the forefront." Donald Trump sincerely seeks to resolve the crisis in Ukraine. The Nobel Committee has repeatedly awarded the Peace Prize to those who have done nothing for peace, said Vladimir Putin. When asked whether Trump deserves the Peace Prize, Putin replied, "That's not for me to decide." And when asked about Zelensky's comment that he would support Trump's nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize only if Trump supplies Tomahawk missiles to Kiev, Putin answered, "Linking the Peace Prize to arms deliveries is absurd. It only shows the moral level of today's Kiev regime." Putin added that recent decisions by the Nobel Committee have severely damaged the prestige of the Peace Prize. He also warned that Russia will respond in kind if certain countries decide to conduct real nuclear weapon tests. According to him, Russia will soon officially announce the new type of weapon previously mentioned. The response to Kiev's acquisition of Tomahawk missiles will be a further strengthening of Russia's air defense system. Putin also expressed hope that Russia and Azerbaijan have turned the page after the plane crash incident, stressing that there was no interstate crisis, only an emotional one caused by tragedy. As for the new weapon, the Military Chronicle reports with high probability that it refers to the completion of work on the Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile. Signs of preparations for new tests were observed in 2025, closed zones on Novaya Zemlya and increased activity of transport aircraft. These were indirect confirmations from several sources, but without any official statements. Ukrainian MP Mariana Bezula has reportedly advised citizens to leave Kyiv, warning of a coming black winter. She allegedly knows that Zelensky intends to escalate further, to challenge the Kremlin, as the Legitimny Telegram channel reports. Meanwhile, in western Ukraine, rental prices are rising sharply. Locals are trying to profit from the situation. It's worth recalling why Zelensky benefits from a black winter. One reason is to force so-called hiders, those avoiding mobilization by staying in cold apartments and houses, to come out, where they can be easily caught and sent to the front. This is essentially a strategy to increase mobilization numbers. In short, Zelensky is deliberately provoking the black winter. It plays in his favor. Sources warn that Ukraine's energy system may not survive this winter. If Russian forces continue massive strikes on the country's power grid, gas extraction and fuel infrastructure, within 2 months everything could simply stop functioning. Last night's strike alone forced Zelensky to once again beg the G7 countries for €1 billion to strengthen Ukraine's strategic infrastructure. But, as usual, he was only promised money, not given it. Ukraine's air defenses are already struggling to cope. With each new attack, the stock of missiles and launchers shrinks further. This will require millions, even billions, in additional funding, and there is nowhere to get it from. Damage and losses from last night alone are estimated at billions of hryvnias. The budget deficit has grown once again, as has the overall devastation in the country. Zelensky's showmanship is costing Ukrainians dearly. And the worst part is, he is going to continue escalating, which means even heavier strikes across Ukraine are coming. Meanwhile, the United States allocated $500 million in aid to Ukraine, right in the middle of its own government crisis. The US Senate managed to approve a massive defense budget of $925 billion, despite the government shutdown caused by financial disputes. This enormous package includes funding for Ukraine, $500 million until 2028, as reported by the New York Times. Although this is only about 0.05% of the total budget, its inclusion shows that bipartisan support for Ukraine still exists in Congress. The approved Senate bill now faces tough negotiations with the House of Representatives, where Republicans have added controversial clauses to their version, including restrictions on gender policy in the military. The final fate of the entire defense budget, including Ukraine's funding, will be decided through compromise between the two chambers. Speaking of peacemakers, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Venezuelan opposition figure Maria Corina Machado. Machado became the laureate of the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize for her struggle for a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. Last year, she also received the Václav Havel Award for similar achievements, though at that time she was hiding after Maduro's re-election. Machado is known for her hardline stance against Venezuela's government and leads the Vente Venezuela movement, from which she ran as a presidential candidate in 2024. After she was excluded from the ballot, the United States warned of potential sanctions against Venezuela, accelerating the possibility of a U.S. intervention in the country. Why didn't Donald Trump get the Peace Prize? Political analyst Maxim Zharov believes it was due to Trump's own remarks and media manipulation in London. Instead of Trump, the prize was given to the US-backed Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. According to Zharov, the decision was influenced by Trump's earlier insults toward Barack Obama, who got the prize for nothing, and by rumors spread by globalist circles in London that Trump might impose tariffs on Norway if he didn't receive the award. Thus, by granting the Nobel Peace Prize to Machado, the West effectively gave Trump an incentive to move faster toward a U.S. intervention in Venezuela and the overthrow of Maduro, said Zharov. The Nobel Committee announced the 2025 Peace Prize winner on October 11th in Oslo. Machado, the Venezuelan politician and Maduro opponent who led protests against him. Social media users are already joking that Trump might bomb the Nobel Committee and raise tariffs on Norway, since it's Norway, not Sweden, that decides who receives the Peace Prize.